Welcome to this explainer. When you picture a human skeleton, you probably imagine a dusty museum exhibit or maybe some spooky Halloween decorations. Just dry, lifeless sticks. Well, prepare to have that illusion completely shattered today. Your skeletal system isn't just some static frame holding you up. It's a vibrant, living, breathing organ system that is constantly tearing itself down and rebuilding itself from scratch. Today, we're going to decode the incredible living scaffold that makes you, you.
Okay, let's dive into this. Did you know you actually have fewer bones right now than you did the exact day you were born? It's true. An infant starts out with around 300 bones, but an adult skeleton, that only has 206. Now, they didn't just disappear. As we grow from infancy into adulthood, many of those initial, smaller bones actually fuse together to form the strong, solid skeletal structures that we rely on today.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with Section 1, the living framework, then move to the anatomy of a bone, zoom into microscopic bone structure, meet the bone builders, and finally wrap up with the types of human bones.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the living framework and its core functions.
Obviously, your bones provide a vital framework for your body. They act as secure attachment points for your muscles and tendons, which is literally what allows you to move around. But they're also functioning as an impenetrable armor. They protect your most vital organs, like your brain, safely encased inside the skull, and your heart behind the ribcage. Plus, they serve as a critical mineral storage bank, constantly maintaining the delicate balance of calcium and phosphorus in your system. And then, there's that fourth point on the list, hemopoiesis.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept of hemopoiesis is that it represents the critical process of producing red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. And the craziest part, it happens entirely within your red bone marrow. That's right, your life-giving blood is literally being manufactured right inside your bones, making them absolutely essential for your immune system and for transporting oxygen throughout your entire body.
Moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy of a Bone, where we'll look at its macrostructure.
If you take a look at a single long bone, you'll see it has some really distinct regions. The long middle shaft is called the diaphysis. It's made of dense, compact bone and houses a hollow medullary cavity right in the middle, which is filled with yellow bone marrow. And that yellow marrow is essentially stored fat. Now, contrast that with the epiphysis. Those are the wider ends of the bone. These ends are made of spongy bone and are absolutely packed with that red marrow we just talked about. So, to put it simply, the tubular center stores fat, while the wider ends are actively manufacturing your blood cells.
Now, nestled right between these two regions, in an area called the metaphysis, lies something super fascinating, the epiphyseal plate. You probably know this as a growth plate. It's a layer of cartilage that basically dictates our vertical height as we grow. But it doesn't stay open forever. This cartilage completely solidifies into solid bone tissue, usually between the ages of 18 and 21. Once that area calcifies, our bones stop lengthening entirely and our height is officially locked in for adulthood.
Wrapping all of these structures up are two vital membranes. On the absolute outside, we have the periosteum, a tough outer membrane that's packed to the brim with blood vessels and nerves. This is the exact spot where your tendons and ligaments securely anchor themselves to the bone. Then, on the inside, lining that central hollow cavity, is the endosteum. This inner lining is absolutely critical because it contains the specialized cells that carry out continuous bone repair and remodeling for your entire life.
Next up is Section 3, microscopic bone structure. We're zooming in to look at bone tissue under a microscopic lens.
When you get right down to it under the microscope, you see two totally distinct textures. First is compact bone, which honestly looks remarkably like dense tree rings. It forms the hard outer shell of the bone. Then we have spongy bone, which looks entirely different, like a porous honeycomb. These little honeycomb structures are called trabecula, and it's actually a brilliant piece of architectural design. It ensures our bones are lightweight enough for us to move easily, yet incredibly strong enough to support our whole body weight without just collapsing.
Let's look a little closer at that dense, compact bone. It's built out of structural units called osteons, sometimes called the Haversian system. These are the tube-like cylinders that form those tree ring shapes. Right down the very middle of each osteon is a central canal that safely houses blood vessels and nerves. And these rings, they're connected by microscopic canals called canaliculae, which allow interstitial fluid to freely flow through, keeping the bone tissue continuously nourished and, most importantly, alive. That brings us to Section 4, the bone builders, exploring the fascinating world of cellular remodeling.
These cells function like a microscopic construction crew, keeping everything running smoothly. We have three main types of bone cells. First up are the osteoblasts. These are your builders, actively producing new bone material. Second, we have osteocytes. These are essentially mature osteoblasts that got trapped inside the very bone matrix they built, and now they've transitioned into the day-to-day maintainers of the tissue. And finally, the osteoclasts. These cells act as the demolition crew, breaking down or resorbing old or injured bone to release calcium back into your bloodstream. So it's this constant, lifelong cycle of targeted demolition by osteoclasts and fresh construction by osteoblasts.
So what exactly is this construction crew building? Well, they're laying down a matrix that has to be both incredibly strong and surprisingly flexible. The connective tissue, specifically collagen protein, provides this durable flexibility so your bones can actually absorb impacts. Meanwhile, calcium phosphate minerals are what provide that famous rigid hardness. It's a delicate balance, because without this perfect protein-mineral mixture, our bones would either shatter instantly like glass under pressure or bend around like rubber.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, types of human bones, taking a look at the different shape categories. Let's zoom all the way back out and see how these shapes come together to build our complete skeleton. We have 5 main categories. Number 1, long bones, which are exactly what they sound like, longer than they are wide, like your arm and leg bones. 2, short bones, which are a bit more boxy and provide vital stability, like the carpals in your wrist. 3, flat bones, which are perfectly designed to protect internal organs, like your sternum or your cranial bones. 4, irregular bones, with complex, totally unique shapes like the vertebrae in your spine. And 5, sutural bones, which are these tiny, extra little joint bones found entirely within the structural seams of your skull.
So, the crucial point here is that out of all these 206 wonderfully shaped bones, the absolute standout is the femur. Located right in your thigh, this long bone is the longest and largest bone in the entire human body. It bears the brunt of our weight every time we stand or walk, and it acts as a massive anchor point for some of our strongest lower body muscles. Now, before we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a mind bender. Think back to those osteoblasts and osteoclasts we talked about earlier, the ones constantly working away, breaking down and rebuilding your bone matrix day in and day out. Since your skeleton is constantly remodeling and replacing itself at the cellular level, how much of the skeleton you have today is the exact same one you had 10 years ago? It's a pretty provocative thought about cellular regeneration, isn't it? It proves that you are, quite literally, always a work in progress from the inside out. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the human skeletal system. Keep learning, and we'll see you next time.